Welcome, my beautiful friend. This is a Time to Care, like Caregivers Podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host. Today with us, we have Teresa Lyons. She is international autism educator, Ivy League scientist, autism parent. She's the founder and CEO of Navigating Autism, and she transforms the overwhelming complexity of autism science into things that we cannot correlate in our daily lives. She has helped people throughout 21 countries, bringing evidence, science based knowledge to help people who are dealing with autism or in the spectrum. And I'm really happy to have you because we've never talked about autism in this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, this is going to be the easiest question ever.
Okay.
How many people are in the spectrum? I honestly don't know.
So the World Health Organization puts the estimate at about 1% of the entire population of the world.
Which is probably it's not much in terms of percentage, but if you count actual people, that's a lot of people.
It is. It certainly is.
So, how does autism impact family dynamics?
Autism comes with a lot of challenges, and it can really force families to communicate so that all of that additional stress that is put on them doesn't create lots of interpersonal problems.
Yeah. So, what would be like some examples of problems that could arise?
Sure. Could start from the beginning of, let's say, a grandparent notices that their grandchild is not progressing developmentally, right? So this grandparent has been through parenting once before, and maybe they visit their grandchild kind of frequently, maybe once a week, maybe every other week, something like that. And they notice they're not really talking too much, or maybe they're not smiling and having that fun interaction, that back and forth. They could be maybe not wanting to interact with the grandparent at all and just sitting by themselves, maybe just kind of looking at a toy, maybe spinning wheels, things like that. So the grandparent might have concerns. Then they're thinking, this isn't really the way I remember my kids being. And so it's really important for grandparents when they have that intuitive feeling to have a conversation with their adult children. But this is not necessarily an easy conversation. So you really have to plan it out. You have to think about it. You have to think about how something might be received. The important thing is to have that conversation because there was research done into grandparents and autism. And it found that grandmothers who had frequent interaction with their grandchild, if there was an autism diagnosis, it was made 5 months sooner, which is definitely important. And for grandfathers who had frequent interaction with their grandchildren, the diagnosis was made 4 months sooner. There's a lot of value in having multi generational support, and having those conversations are difficult, but you really need to plan them out and have them because everybody wants the best for everyone in the family typically. So those uncomfortable conversations, they need to be had.
So once parents, grandparents know that there's an autism diagnosis, what happens? What happens next? Not in terms of treatment, but in terms of family dynamics.
What happens next in terms of family dynamics is the adult child now has a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress put on them. So it's great for the family as a whole to pitch in and really help this adult child, this parent that is now going to have lots of school involvement, right? So you need to get an IEP. You need to get different therapies probably in school. You might need therapies outside of school. There might be different doctor's appointments. So many different things. There might be a child who's not sleeping at night. So many kids with autism don't sleep. And that obviously is wearing on the adult child. So there's so many different aspects that a family could come in and pitch in and help. It certainly, watching the grandchild is beneficial, but not every grandparent is good to have remaining calm and handling the different situations related to autism. So it's not as if it's like all or nothing. That grandparent might be good at running errands, or maybe making sure the kitchen is stocked, or maybe they like to cook. So they cook at their place and they drop off food to the adult child. There's so many different ways that you could be creative, but the important part is to come together and to bring that support.
How do you recommend bringing that support together?
Having a conversation about, if I was the grandparent, I would think about, okay, what are the things that I like to do and that I would be willing to do? And then to plan out a conversation and with my adult child and say, I love you very much. I want to support you. I think you're doing a great job. Autism is something maybe I don't understand. So you might be doing things and I might be asking you why, but it's not because I don't think you're doing a good job. I just don't understand autism in many ways, but I want to help out. So these are the things that I would love to do. Would you like me to do any of those for you? And so then that way it allows the adult child to say either yes or no to certain things, and you can then figure it out together. But it's important for the grandparent to start out with things that they're willing to do so that when they do them, it's appreciated and the adult child can really receive whatever the grandparent is doing, but then also to give the feedback of appreciation.
Do you feel the adult child receives help easily, or is it more like, hey, I want to have control over the situation?
Definitely, it depends. Some adult children, they want to have that control. Some parents do feel like they need to control the situation, and sometimes it's because the child with autism has different triggers, or it might be very difficult to understand what their needs are. And that's why there should be a conversation between the adult child and the grandparent as to, okay, how can we help each other? Because if what is decided upon is not something that either are comfortable with, right? So maybe the grandparent says, okay, let me just watch the grandson. And the mom is thinking, I don't think that's going to go well. They're going to have a meltdown and, all of this stuff. But you're at the end of your rope and you just say, okay, fine. Right. And then it doesn't go well. Right. Then that creates a problem for the future. Like, how do we continue to work together as a family? Um, so it's really important to have that conversation. And if a grandparent wants to watch their grandchild with autism, I think it's really important for the grandparent to be open to learning about what autism is, what it means specifically for this child. So, is there a problem with communications? Is there noise sensitivity? Is there light sensitivity? There's so much nuances that it's not so easy as, okay, just I'm gonna walk out of the house and you watch Johnny. It's more complex than that, and research has actually been shown into this for autism parents. So there's research that was done looking at parents of children who had autism who received just education. So just an explanation of what autism is. And they measured different outcomes like meltdowns, emotional regulation, things like that. And then the second arm had the education piece. So teaching parents what autism is, and then it went further and said, okay, these are the tools. This is how you deal with a meltdown. This is how you understand triggers, and really gave them practical ways to interact. And no surprise, right? The parents in that section of the study did much better. Their children was more regulated. And it's because so much about autism isn't something that we're just all expected to know. So there is a huge education piece of for parents or grandparents for those who really want to have successful interactions with people with autism.
There is a lot of correlation between autism and dementia, Alzheimer's. And you're talking about education and involving the whole family, which I find it should be done whatever the diagnosis is. If it's cancer, dementia, anything else, like if you need help and support, you're talking about something that should happen in every family. First, we gather the family, we see what resources we have and what each of us can do and support and how we can put together things. And then we educate ourselves, or probably the education piece goes hand in hand with what we have. We're learning about what this means. We have really good friends, and her mother-in-law is in dialysis. They do the dialysis at home. I was talking with her. They haven't been able to travel because he has to be there every single day to help with the dialysis. That was
Mm.
part of the education of what that means. And I think we need to build that support system. What do you see are the differences between caring for a child and an adult?
For parents whose children have autism, a lot of times there's increased frustration because it's the beginning of life. Caring for an adult has its own complexities, right? The body is bigger, but caring for a child can sometimes have the mental weight of how long am I going to be doing this? Caregiving is not easy. Again, it depends on where on the child they are with autism. Some have a lot more physical limitations than others. It really depends on how that child is.
Do dynamics change whenever these grandparents stop being able to support their children?
If the family was together and they're supporting each other, and then for some reason the grandparents no longer able to do that.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get at with this question, what happens when the parents go from being parents and then now they're in the sandwich generation? They have to care for their children and care for their parents as well.
Yeah, that is very, very difficult. In many cases, it's triaging and then having a strong focus on yourself because caregiver burnout is definitely a reality. It wouldn't benefit either side, right? If you're burnt out and irritable and tired, you're not really going to help either. Really, when you're in the sandwich generation, then there's got to be more focus on self care for yourself so that you can show up and be the way that you want to be.
How do you recommend parents to do that?
It is it's difficult, first acknowledging that the situation is difficult, not trying to
Mhm.
sugarcoat it, but getting clear on what makes that person happy. For me, sometimes rest is important, right? Good night's sleep. Sometimes that's all I need is just solid 7, 8 hours of sleep. And then, whoo, okay, the world's different now. Sometimes if I'm not sleeping, or even if I am sleeping, I need some type of physical activity. Because sometimes when you're in your head and you're kind of worrying, you're worrying about your parents, you're worrying about your child, right? It's too much of the thoughts. I notice in myself when that is happening, I go for a swim. I'm a open water swimmer now. There's always the pool when it's too cold. When the lake is frozen, I don't swim there, but I tune into my body and know, okay, if my mind is racing too much, then I really need more physical activity. This is something that I've tuned into myself. It's important for parents to recognize that, okay, I'm starting to get irritable. What can I do for myself? Having a list is really important. What do I want to do? What's going to make me feel better? Because otherwise, if you don't have options, you might end up just laying on the couch, scrolling on the phone, or just zoning out with TV or a movie. And a lot of times that doesn't really replenish. And that's what you want from self-care is how do I feel really good, energized, and ready to get back out there?
Personally, how do you tune in with your own body? Because I I feel a lot of people struggle with that. For a lot of people, we just receive a checklist of how self-care should look like, and it never considers that fine-tuning of what does my body need.
Mhm. I've been meditating over 20 years. And with meditation, there's lots of different ways to meditate. So it's actually pretty hard to be a bad meditator because persistence and really refining the meditation is the whole point of meditation. Just being kind to yourself that you're not supposed to succeed in meditation like the first time. And meditation is really to know thyself. When you sit there, what thoughts are you thinking? Am I able to have a clear mind? Am I worried about this? Am I worried about that? Why am I worried about that? You're just giving yourself some quiet time to really reflect. Now, this can be done as like a walking meditation. So some people might be very uncomfortable sitting on, sitting crisscrossed or sitting in a chair and just being quiet. You certainly can go for a walking meditation in like a forest or go for a hike in a park. You just want to be surrounded by the trees and just really like look up at them. And what you're doing is really making yourself very present. You're forcing yourself to not be worried about the past or anxious about the future. It's really about being present. And then you can start to get an understanding of, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? Those are the kinds of questions I always ask myself. And then I've done worksheets where I've tried to figure out, like, okay, what saps my energy? For me, sugar. I don't eat sugar during the week. There's no cookies or stuff like that. When I have that swing of blood sugar, I'm not my best self. I get mad at myself even more. I'm going in the wrong direction. I eat the sugar and then I get irritable and then I get mad at myself for getting irritable and then I'm tired and then what? I need some sugar again. It's bad directions. I really focus on what saps my energy, make sure I don't do that because that's not helpful whatsoever. And then what is it that really brings me joy? Sometimes dancing while I'm cooking. Let me put on some good music. It doesn't have to be taking up a lot of your time, but there is an element of being self aware and asking yourself, how could I somehow have fun doing this?
I usually talk about that. How can you enhance circumstances in life? I've talked in the past, how can you enhance your shower? I personally turn on a candle, so I have that candle going and I'm showering. If I have to cook, I'm gonna play music and I'm gonna be dancing and cooking. If it's a lot of cleaning, I tend to grab a drink that I really like, which is usually either wine, cider, or tea.
Uh-huh.
And I just go through that with music and it's just relaxation. But we don't usually talk about the things that we really enjoy. And we don't talk about how can we make the things that we're already doing better. How do you notice like the things that you're not really enjoying that you have to do and how can you make them better?
I recently just did this. My basement was out of control. And I had been wanting to clean out the basement, but it's such a big job and where do I start? And it really became, all right, who can I do this with that would be fun? It became kind of a little hangout session where it's like, all right, let's bring everything up. Let's kind of go through and sort it and have fun giving stuff away. Have fun creating a donation pile, thinking about all the fun other people will have using things that we no longer need. That was one way that I made something that was big project that I was not really looking forward to, but making it fun. And you could do it in little ways.
What are your general recommendations for people out there if a loved one has autism and they feel overwhelmed because they don't know where to start or what to do, obviously, they call you, they email you or whatever.
Right. The first part is really getting clear on that child. I usually walk parents through thinking about, okay, what are the top 3 issues that either child is struggling with or it's impacting the overall quality of family life? It could be something like maybe sleep is a problem, maybe inability to sit still, and maybe going to church or going to a movie, going out as a family that might be impacted. It's important to think about the child, but also the quality of life of the family because we have kids and stuff to have that family element. That's really the important part to start with because autism is such a spectrum, right? You have kids that need different things and there are different interventions and therapies for to target a variety of things. And so you want to make sure that what you're doing lines up with what your child needs. That's really the most important part.
Perfect. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Parenting a child with autism is difficult. There's no denying that. There's additional challenges that someone with autism is going to have. But it's also important to know that there are ways around those challenges, either through them, over them, under them, around them. It's just important not to give up. It's extremely hard. It's typically a tough journey, but there is so much reward and satisfaction of working together as a team with your child to overcome those challenges. And that's really how you raise a resilient child.
Where can people learn more about you, the work you do, get in contact with you?
Sure. We have a website, navigatingautism.com. And parents can go over there, and we have a platform where we have information for parents, the cutting edge information and the different sections that are really important. And we have board certified health coaches there to help parents through this whole entire journey. There's a lot of ups and downs, and you want to stay motivated and consistent. We offer functional medicine lab testing that can be purchased through the platform. And we really are there to support the parents in those tough days.
Thank you so much, Theresa. This was such a lovely conversation.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, just for you to know, the content presented in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any affiliated organizations or sponsors. If you need additional advice, please contact the right partner for you.